The great council hall stood empty where Jake Morrison used to sit. For 7 years, the human ambassador had occupied the third seat from the left in the front row. His chair remained exactly where he had left it 3 months ago, but dust was starting to gather on the polished surface. Speaker Veltar walked through the massive chamber, her crystal-like skin catching the artificial sunlight that streamed through the dome above. The Zenturi leader had called this place home for over 2 decades, but lately it felt different, colder somehow, less complete. She stopped at Jake's empty chair and ran her long fingers across the back. The human had been a good ambassador, patient when others were angry, calm when debates got heated. He always listened before speaking, which was rare among the younger species in the galaxy. That made his sudden departure even more puzzling. 3 months ago, it had simply stopped. Coming to the council meetings, no explanation. No formal withdrawal notice. No angry speech about unfair treatment. He had just vanished, along with every other human in the galactic government. At first, Veltar thought it was some kind of protest. Humans were known for their dramatic gestures when they felt ignored or mistreated. She expected Jake to return. Within a week, probably with demands for better trade agreements or more representation on the military planning committee, but the week passed. Then another, then a whole month. The human trade stations went silent. Their merchant ships stopped. Arriving at major ports, the research facilities that humans had built throughout council space powered down and emptied overnight. It was as if humanity had simply decided the galaxy was not worth their time anymore. General Vex of the Corvan military entered the chamber, his heavy boots echoing in the empty space. The large reptilian warrior moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle, but even he seemed smaller in the vast hall. "Any word from the human colonies?" Veltar asked, without turning around. "Nothing," Dex replied, his voice a low rumble. "Our communication officers have tried every frequency. The human worlds are not responding to any messages. Perhaps their equipment is broken. All of it, at the same time? On every world?" Dex shook his massive head. This was planned. "Speaker, they coordinated their withdrawal across the entire species." Veltar finally turned to face the general. "But why? What did we do wrong?" Dex was quiet for a moment, thinking, maybe we should ask what we did not do right. Before Veltar could respond, the chamber doors opened again. Dr. Lisa Grant walked in, carrying a stack of data tablets. Human scientist was one of only 3 members of her species still working in council space, and she looked tired. "Dr. Grant," Veltar said with relief. "Perhaps you can help us understand what happened." Lisa set down her tablets and looked at the 2 alien leaders. She had been dreading this conversation for weeks. "I can tell you what I know, but I doubt it will make you feel better." "We need answers," General Vex said. "Your people have abandoned their obligations to the council. They left without warning during a time of growing threats in the outer systems. They left because no one was listening to their warnings about those threats," Lisa replied quietly. Veltar stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Lisa picked up one of her tablets and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing council meeting records from the past 2 years. Jake Morrison presented 17 different reports about unusual activity in the deep space sectors. 17 times he asked for investigation teams to be sent out. "I remember those meetings," Veltar said. "The reports were inconclusive. We saw no evidence of immediate danger." "That was the problem," Lisa continued. "You only looked for immediate danger. Jake was worried about long-term threats. Ancient signals, old technology powering up in dead systems. Strange patterns in the background radiation." General Vex crossed his arms. "Those were minor anomalies. Nothing that required major military action. To you, maybe? But humans have a different way of thinking about problems." Lisa switched to another display showing human colony locations. "We plan for worst-case scenarios. We prepare for threats. That might never come. You call it paranoia. We call it survival." Veltar studied the display. The human colonies formed a strange pattern across the galaxy, not clustered together like most species preferred. They were spread out, often in locations that seemed strategically unimportant. "Where are they now?" she asked. I do not know, Lisa admitted. 3 months ago, I got a message from my supervisor telling me to finish my current projects and prepare for evacuation. But when I asked where we were going, she said that information was classified. Classified from their own people, General Dex asked. Classified from everyone who stayed behind. Lisa's voice was sad. They offered to take me with them, but I had too much work left to do here. I thought I would have time to join them later. She paused, looking around the empty chamber. Now I wonder if there will be a later. General Dex stepped forward. What do you mean by that? The evacuation was not just from Council space, Lisa explained. It was from their old colonies, too. Every human settlement, every research station, every military outpost, they moved their entire civilization somewhere else. That is impossible, Veltar said. You cannot move billions of people without someone noticing. You can if you plan it carefully over several years, Lisa replied. And if you build your new homes in places no one else is looking. The three of them stood in silence for a moment, thinking about what this meant. An entire species had vanished from known space, taking all their technology and knowledge with them. They must have found something, General Vex said finally. Some threat that scared them enough to abandon everything they had built here. Or they found somewhere better to go, Veltar added. Lisa shook her head. I do not think they found something better. I think they found something worse, something they tried to warn you about, but you would not listen. She activated another display, this one showing the locations where Jake had requested investigation. Teams, look at these coordinates. Notice anything? Veltar and General Vex studied the star map. The locations formed a rough circle around the galactic core, all in sectors that were considered empty space. They were trying to establish a perimeter. General Vex realized they wanted to monitor something coming from the center of the galaxy. But what? Veltar asked. I do not know, Lisa said. But whatever it was, it scared humanity enough to abandon everything they had built with the Council. These people loved being part of the galactic community. Jake Morrison spent years trying to prove that humans deserved a place here. She picked up her tablets and headed toward the door. If they were willing to leave all of that behind, then what they found out there must be worse than anything we can imagine. After Lisa left, Veltar and General Vex remained in the empty chamber. The silence felt heavier now, filled with questions they could not answer. Should we send ships to investigate those coordinates? General Dex asked. With what? Veltar replied. Half our patrol fleets were joint operations with human crews. Our deep space exploration ships relied on human navigation technology. Even our communication networks used human encryption protocols. The truth was becoming clear. Humanity had not just left the Council. It had taken a significant portion of the Council's capabilities with them. They knew we would be vulnerable. Without them, General Vex said. They left anyway, Veltar finished. The question is whether they abandoned us, or whether they are trying to protect us from something we are not ready to face. Outside the chamber, the rest of the Council continued its daily business, unaware that the balance of power in the galaxy had already begun to shift. The weeks to come, they would learn just how much they had depended on the humans they had taken for granted, but by then, it might be too late to ask for help. 6 months had passed since humanity disappeared from the galaxy, and the problems were getting worse every day. Commander Zara of the Corvan Medical Corps stood in the supply warehouse, staring at the nearly empty shelves, where hundreds of medical containers should have been stored. Only a few dozen remained. The blue labels on each container showed the same manufacturer, Morrison Medical Industries, a human company. How long will these last? Asked Dr. Vex, the chief medical officer for the Corvan fleet. Zara checked her datapad. 3 weeks? Maybe 4 if we ration them carefully. Our own factories? Still trying to figure out how to make them? Zara's voice was frustrated. Humans never shared their manufacturing process. They said it was trade secret information. Dr. Vex picked up one of the containers and examined it. The medicine inside was a miracle drug that could heal injuries in hours instead of days. Corvan soldiers had been using it for 5 years, and it had saved thousands of lives. Can we make something similar? He asked. Our best scientists have been working on it for months, Zara replied. They can copy maybe 30% of the effects. The rest is beyond our understanding. Dr. Vex set the container down carefully. What about other suppliers? We tried. The Zenturi have some basic healing compounds, but they take weeks to work. The Talonari have advanced technology, but their medicines do not work on Corvin biology. The two medical officers stood in silence, looking at the empty shelves. For years they had taken human medical supplies for granted. The humans had been reliable suppliers, always delivering on time and at fair prices. Now they were gone, and the Corvin military was facing a crisis. Send a message to General Dex, Dr. Vex said finally. Tell him we need to reduce combat operations until we find a solution. Across the galaxy, similar problems were growing worse. Each day, Captain Rala of the Zephyrian Merchant Guild was reading the latest shipping reports when her communications officer rushed into the bridge. Captain, we just lost another convoy, the officer reported. Pirates hit the Nexus 7 route. 3 ships destroyed, 2 captured. Rala felt her heart sink. Which route was that? It's the one through the Outer Rim? The same path we have been using for 2 years? That route was supposed to be safe. The humans had patrol ships there. Communications officer nodded sadly. Not anymore. The pirates know the human ships are gone. They're attacking everywhere the humans used to protect. Called up a star map showing the major trade routes. Red markers indicated recent pirate attacks. There were dozens of them, all in areas that had been safe when human patrol fleets were active. How many ships have we lost this month? She asked. 47, the officer replied. That is more than we lost in the previous 2 years combined.
Ella
Closed her eyes and tried to think. The Zephyrian Merchant Guild had built their business model around the safety that human military patrols provided. Without that protection, their ships were easy targets for pirates and raiders. What about hiring our own security? She asked. We tried. The Corvan military is dealing with their own problems. The Zentari Navy is busy protecting their own trade routes. Everyone else wants prices we cannot afford. The truth was painful but clear. The humans had been providing security services at prices far below what anyone else charged. They had claimed it was part of their commitment to galactic peace and prosperity. Most merchants had assumed it was because humans were desperate to prove themselves worthy of council membership. Now they realized the humans had been subsidizing galactic trade out of their own resources. Send a message to the guild leaders, Rala said. Tell them we need to find new routes or hire better security. We cannot continue losing ships like this. But she knew that either choice would make their goods more expensive and their profits smaller. The comfortable trade relationships they had enjoyed for years were gone forever. Meanwhile, on the research station Bright Star, Dr. Kess of the Talonari Science Council was facing his own crisis. The quantum field generators are not working, his assistant reported. We have tried everything, but we cannot reproduce the human design. Dr. Kess looked at the broken machinery with frustration. For 3 years, his team had been working on a project to create artificial gravity wells. They had been making excellent progress thanks to collaboration with human scientists. What about the backup systems? He asked. Those were based on human technology too. We thought we understood how they worked, but apparently we were wrong. Dr. Kess pulled up the project files on his computer. Page after page of technical specifications, all marked with human research contributions. He had thought was joint development had actually been his team following human guidance. How much of this project is our own work? He asked. His assistant checked the files carefully. Maybe 20%. The rest came from human research databases or direct consultation with human scientists. The realization hit Dr. Kess like a physical blow. His team had not been developing new technology. It had been copying human innovations and pretending they were equal partners in the research. What about our other projects? I am checking them now. The assistant worked quickly through the files. The faster-than-light communication system uses human quantum mechanics. The new energy storage units are based on human battery technology. The improved ship engines rely on human metallurgy. Double quotes. Dr. Kess sat down heavily in his chair. In the Talonari. We're supposed to be the most advanced research civilization in the galaxy. They prided themselves on their scientific achievements and technological innovations, but without human knowledge and cooperation, Half their projects were grinding to a halt. "Can we contact the human scientists directly?" he asked. "We tried. All the communication channels are dead. It is like the humans have cut themselves off from the entire galaxy." Dr. Kess stared at his computer screen, watching years of research fall apart. The humans had been generous with their knowledge, sharing discoveries and techniques freely. His people had assumed this was because humans were young and eager to learn from more advanced species. Now he wondered if the humans had been teaching them, not learning from them. In the Council Security Office, Martin Ross was reading reports. That made him more worried each day. The human security officer had been born on a council world and held dual citizenship, which was why he had stayed behind when the others left. "The Zenturi communication networks have been breached again," his deputy reported. "Third time this month." Martin looked at the security logs. Someone was intercepting sensitive council communications and selling the information to pirates and hostile governments. The attacks were becoming more frequent and more sophisticated. "What about the security protocols the humans installed?" he asked. "They worked perfectly for 5 years. But now they are failing. The attackers seem to know exactly how to bypass them." Martin understood the problem. The security systems had been designed to receive regular updates from human cybersecurity experts. Without those updates, the systems were becoming vulnerable to new types of attacks. "Can we fix them ourselves?" "We're trying, but the human programming is very complex. Our best programmers estimate it will take months to understand how everything works." Martin nodded grimly. "And by then every secret the council has will be public knowledge." He walked to the window and looked out at the council headquarters. The massive building still looked impressive, but Martin knew it was becoming hollow inside. Without human expertise, the council was losing its ability to function effectively. His personal communicator buzzed. A message from Admiral Kate Sullivan, one of the few humans he still had contact with. "Tell them we warned about the storm." The message said, "Now they will face it alone." Martin tried to send a reply, but the communication channel was already dead. Kate had cut the connection from her end, just like all the other humans had done. He looked at the message again and felt a chill. What storm? What had the humans seen that the council had missed? Outside his window, the galaxy continued its daily business, unaware that the foundations of their civilization were cracking. The humans had left quietly, but their absence was creating problems that grew worse every day, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something was stirring that would make all these problems seem small. 1 year after humanity vanished, the galaxy faced something it had never seen before. The first sign came from the deep space monitoring station at the edge of Council territory. Lieutenant Cora of the Zenturi Communications Corps was working the night shift when her instruments started picking up strange signals from the Galactic Core. "Supervisor Hal, you need to see this." She called to her commanding officer. Supervisor Hal walked over to her station and looked at the displays. The screen showed energy readings unlike anything in their database. Massive power sources were activating in areas of space that were supposed to be empty. "Are you sure these readings are correct?" Hal asked. "I have checked them 3 times. Something big is waking up out there." Hal studied the data more carefully. The energy signatures were coming from dozens of different locations, all in a rough circle around the galactic center. Each source was producing more power than an entire star system. "Send this information to Council headquarters immediately," he ordered, "and contact the nearest patrol fleet. We need ships to investigate." But before Lieutenant Cora could send the message, her instruments detected something else. The energy sources were moving. 3 days later, the patrol fleet Brightwing arrived at the first coordinates. Captain Rex of the Corvon Navy commanded the lead ship, a heavy cruiser with the most advanced sensors the Council could build. "What do you see?" he asked his science officer. "Nothing, sir. Empty space, just like the star charts show."
Captain Rex frowned.
"But the monitoring station detected massive energy readings from this location." "I know, sir. But our sensors show nothing unusual." Captain Rex was about to order a wider search pattern when his tactical officer spoke up. "Sir, I am detecting movement. Something large is approaching from the galactic core. Show me." The main screen displayed a three-dimensional map of local space. A red dot was moving toward them at incredible speed. As they watched, the dot grew larger and larger until they could see it was not a ship, but an entire fleet. "How many vessels?" Captain Rex asked. "Unable to determine, sir.
Oh.
Our computers cannot count them all." The approaching fleet filled the display screen. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than any vessel the Council had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, like parts of a single organism. "Open communication channels," Captain Rex ordered. "Standard first contact protocols." Its communications officer tried every frequency and transmission method they knew. Nothing worked. The alien fleet did not respond to any attempts at communication. "Sir, they are targeting us," the tactical officer reported. "Raise shields. Prepare defensive positions." But the Council ships never had a chance to fight. The alien fleet opened fire with weapons that cut through their shields like they were made of paper. Captain Rex watched in horror as his escort ships were destroyed in seconds. "All ships, retreat immediately," he ordered. Only 3 ships from the patrol fleet escaped. Captain Rex made it back to Council space with terrible news. The galaxy was under attack by an enemy unlike anything they had ever faced. The creature attacking them called itself the Harvester. It spoke to the Council through captured communication systems, its voice cold and mechanical. "I am awake again," the Harvester announced. "I have slept for 1,000,000 years, waiting for the galaxy to grow ripe for harvest. Now I will collect what has grown in my absence." The Harvester's ships spread out from the galactic core like a plague. Everywhere they went, they destroyed planets and absorbed the matter into their growing fleet. Entire star systems vanished, leaving only empty space behind. The Council military tried to fight back, but their weapons and tactics were useless against the Harvester technology. General Vex led the largest fleet ever assembled by the Council. More than 2,000 ships from every member species. The battle took place in the Kepler system, where the Council made their stand. General Dex had chosen the location carefully, using asteroid fields and gas clouds to provide cover for his ships. "All units attack pattern Delta," he commanded. "Focus fire on the largest enemy vessels." The Council fleet attacked with everything they had. Energy weapons, missile barrages, and kinetic projectiles filled space around the Harvester ships. For a moment, it looked like their combined firepower might actually damage the enemy. Then the Harvester ships began to adapt. "Sir, their shields are changing," reported the tactical officer. "Our weapons are becoming less effective." "General." Dex watched in disbelief as the enemy shields modified themselves to counter each type of weapon the Council used. Energy beams were absorbed and redirected. Missiles were intercepted by defensive systems that seemed to predict their flight paths. Kinetic weapons simply bounced off armor that became harder with each impact. "How is this possible?" he asked. "The enemy ships are analyzing our attacks and adapting their defenses in real time," his science officer explained. "It is like they were designed specifically to counter our military technology." The battle turned into a massacre. The Harvester ships destroyed Council vessels with ease, while taking almost no damage themselves. General Vex watched helplessly as centuries of military tradition proved worthless against an enemy that could learn and adapt faster than his forces could fight. "All units retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the defensive line." But there was no defensive line that could stop the Harvester. The ancient enemy had studied galactic military tactics and built its weapons to counter them perfectly. Word of the defeat spread panic throughout Council space. Emergency sessions were called, but the representatives had no idea how to fight an enemy that seemed unstoppable. "We need help," Speaker Veltar announced. "We cannot win this war alone." "From who?" asked the Talinary representative. "There is no other military force in the galaxy." "What about the humans?" suggested Dr. Lisa Grant, who had become an unofficial advisor to the Council. The chamber fell silent. Many of the representatives looked uncomfortable at the suggestion. "The humans abandoned us," said the Zephyrian ambassador. "They cannot be trusted. They left because we ignored their warnings," Lisa replied.
Maybe they knew this was coming.
General Vex, badly wounded from the recent battle, spoke from his medical bed. "It does not matter why they left. We need their help now." "But we do not even know where they went," Speaker Veltar pointed out. "Dr. Ryan Palmer was working in..." the mining tunnels of Asteroid Station 7. When he received the desperate message from his old colleagues in the Council military, the human engineer had served as a strategic advisor before humanity's departure. He was one of the few humans who had stayed behind to finish important infrastructure projects. "Please," the message said. "We need access to human tactical databases. The enemy is destroying everything. Millions are dying." Ryan looked at the message for a long time before deleting it. He had tried to warn the Council about threats from the Galactic Core. His reports had been filed away and forgotten, just like Jake Morrison's diplomatic warnings. Too little too late, he said to himself, but even as he said it, Ryan felt conflicted. These were people he had worked with for years. Friends and colleagues who were facing extinction. He activated his personal communicator and sent a coded message to a frequency he hoped was still active. "Phoenix Command, this is Palmer. Quest status update on defensive preparations." The reply came within minutes. "Palmer, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan. Glad to hear you are alive. Defensive positions are ready. We have been tracking the Harvester's progress. The Council is requesting assistance," Ryan reported. "Are they willing to accept our terms?" Admiral Sullivan asked. Ryan thought about the proud Council representatives who had dismissed human concerns for years. "I do not think they understand what your terms would be." "Then they are not desperate enough yet," the Admiral replied. "When they are ready to listen, instead of command, we will be here." The communication ended, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts. Somewhere out there, humanity was prepared for this crisis. They had seen it coming and made their plans accordingly, but the galaxy that had rejected their warnings would have to face the consequences of that choice. The Harvester fleet continued its advance, consuming everything in its path. Soon it would reach the core worlds of the Council, and then there would be nowhere left to run. The storm that humanity had warned about was finally here, and the galaxy was facing it alone. 18 months after humanity's disappearance, Captain Nix of the Zephyrian scout ship Wanderer was running for his life. The Harvester fleet had destroyed his home system 3 days ago. Nix had watched from a distance as the ancient machines consumed entire planets, turning matter into more ships for their endless fleet. Now he was fleeing through unexplored space, hoping to find somewhere safe to hide. "Captain, I am detecting something strange," his navigator reported. "There appears to be a massive energy barrier ahead." Nix looked at his instruments. The readings showed an enormous invisible wall blocking their path. It stretched for billions of kilometers in every direction, completely surrounding a cluster of star systems. "What kind of technology could create something this large?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Our databases have no record of anything like this." As they approached the barrier, Nix's ship was suddenly surrounded by bright lights. A sleek vessel appeared next to them, its design unlike anything the Zephyrian had ever seen. The ship was clearly advanced, but there was something familiar about its construction. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself," came a voice over the communication system. Nix felt his heart skip a beat. He recognized that accent. "This is Captain Nix of the Zephyrian Republic. Please, we need help. The Harvester destroyed our system." There was a pause before the voice replied. "Captain Nix, this is Captain Alex Morgan of the Earthship Phoenix. We will escort you to safety." Earthship. Nix could barely believe it. "You are human." "It is correct." "Follow our lead and do not deviate from our flight path." The Phoenix guided the Wanderer through the energy barrier. As they passed through, Nix saw something that made him question everything he thought he knew about humanity. Thriving colonies covered dozens of worlds. Massive space stations floated between the planets, their designs far more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. Ships moved between the systems, using technology that seemed to bend space itself. "How long have you been here?" asked in amazement. "We have been preparing these systems for 3 years," Captain Morgan replied. "Ever since we detected the first signs of Harvester activity? 3 years? But you only left Council space 18 months ago." "We left Council space 18 months ago," Captain Morgan corrected. "We began our preparations long before that." The Phoenix brought the Wanderer to a large space station orbiting a blue-green world. As they docked, Nix saw other refugee ships. From various Council species, hundreds of survivors who had escaped the Harvester's advance, Commander Beth Williams met them at the docking bay. The human officer looked tired but determined, like someone who had been working without rest for months. "Welcome to New Horizon Station," she said. "You are safe here." "How?" Nix asked. "How did you know to prepare for this?" Beth led them to a briefing room where other refugee leaders were gathered. On the walls were star charts showing the harvesters, advance, and the location of human colonies. "We have been studying the harvester for 20 years, Beth explained. "Our archaeologists found references to it in ruins across the galaxy. Ancient warnings left by civilizations that faced this threat." Before a Corvin officer named Colonel Vex raised his hand. "But why did you never share this information with the Council?" "We tried," Beth replied. Ambassador Jake Morrison presented 17 different reports about the threat. Each time the Council dismissed our concerns as human paranoia. She activated a holographic display showing Council meeting records. "Here's the vote on funding a deep space investigation mission. Rejected 47-3. Here's the proposal for joint defensive preparations. Rejected 51-2. Here is the request for evacuation planning. Rejected, unanimous." The room fell silent as the refugee leaders realized the truth. Humanity had tried to warn them. The Council had refused to listen. "So you decided to save yourselves?" Colonel Vex said bitterly. "We decided to save everyone we could," Beth corrected. "Look around the station. How many non-human refugees do you see?" Nix looked through the observation windows. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were living and working on the station. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building defenses and caring for survivors. "We could have hidden in deep space and waited for the storm to pass," Beth continued. "Instead, we have been rescuing every ship we can find." Dr. Lisa Grant, who had arrived on a refugee ship 2 weeks earlier, stepped forward. The humans offered to share their defensive technology with the Council before they left. "I found the records in the diplomatic archives." "What records?" asked Colonel Vex. Lisa activated her datapad. 3 months before the withdrawal, Ambassador Morrison sent a formal proposal to share harvester countermeasures with all Council species. The vote was to reject the proposal as unnecessary and expensive. Corvin Colonel stared at the display. "But we never saw this proposal, because your representatives voted against it in closed session. They said human technology was inferior and not worth the cost." Oth walked to the star chart on the wall. "Every human colony you see here is protected by shields designed specifically to hide from harvester sensors. Every ship in our fleet carries weapons that can actually damage harvester technology." "How is that possible?" Nix asked. "Because we studied our enemy for decades instead of ignoring it," Beth replied. "We analyzed every piece of harvester technology we could find. We learned how their ships think and adapt. We developed countermeasures for their weapons and defenses." She pointed to another display showing human ship designs. These vessels looked different from Council ships because they were built to fight the harvester. Every system, every weapon, every piece of armor was designed with this specific enemy in mind. Colonel Vex looked at the refugee ships in the docking bay. "But you are helping us anyway. Even after we rejected your warnings, because that is what civilized people do," Beth said simply. "We do not abandon others just because they made mistakes." Admiral Kate Sullivan entered the briefing room, her uniform bearing the insignia of the Earth's Defense Fleet. The other refugees straightened respectfully. Recognizing her authority, "I have news from the front lines," she announced. "The Harvester Fleet has reached the Council core worlds. Zenturi Prime is under attack." "What about the Council military?" Colonel Vex asked. "General Vex is leading a desperate defense, but his forces are outnumbered 1,000-1. Without new weapons and tactics, they will not last another week." "Admiral." Sullivan looked around the room at the refugee leaders. "The Council has sent a formal request for assistance. They're offering to negotiate terms for human aid." "What kind of terms?" Nix asked. "Full disclosure of all military secrets, unrestricted access to Council technology databases, and formal recognition of human leadership in the war effort." The room buzzed with discussion. These were terms that would have been unthinkable before the crisis. The proud Council species were being asked to humble themselves completely. "Will you accept?" Colonel Vex asked. Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a moment. That depends on whether the Council is truly ready to change. We will not waste human lives protecting people who refuse to learn from their mistakes. She activated a communication device. I am about to contact the Council directly. You are welcome to listen to their response. The communication system connected to Council headquarters. Speaker Veltar appeared on the screen, looking exhausted and desperate. Admiral Sullivan, the Zenturi leader said, "Thank you for responding to our request." Speaker Veltar, Admiral Sullivan replied formally. "I understand you need assistance with the Harvester threat. Yes, our military forces are being destroyed. Cannot stop the enemy advance. The same enemy advance that Ambassador Morrison warned you about for 2 years?" Speaker Veltar looked uncomfortable. "We may have underestimated the threat. You ignored every warning we gave you. You rejected our offers to share defensive technology. You dismissed our concerns as human paranoia." Admiral Sullivan's voice was calm, but firm. "Why should we risk human lives to save people who refused to save themselves?" The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Speaker Veltar spoke again. "Because you are better than we are. It's because you have the power to help, and that makes it your responsibility." Admiral Sullivan studied the alien leader's face. "Are you prepared to accept human leadership in this war?" "Yes." "Are you prepared to share all Council technology and military secrets?" "Yes." "Are you prepared to acknowledge that humanity tried to prevent this disaster?" Speaker Veltar hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. We were wrong. We should have listened." "Admiral." Sullivan looked around the briefing room at the refugee leaders, then back at the communication screen. "Very well, Speaker Veltar. The Earth Defense Fleet will come to your aid. But this time, we do things our way." Outside the station, the human fleet was already preparing for war. Ships that had been hidden for months were powering up their engines. Weapons designed specifically to fight the Harvester were being loaded and tested. The galaxy's salvation was coming, but it would come on humanity's terms. The human fleet arrived at Zenturi Prime just as the planet's last defenses were failing. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the command ship Liberty, watching the Harvester ships tear through what remained of the Council fleet. Former ambassador had traded his diplomatic uniform for military command gear, but his patient demeanor remained unchanged. "How many Council ships are left?" he asked his tactical officer. "Fewer than 200, sir. General Vex is trying to form a defensive line around the planet, but the Harvester fleet outnumbers them 50-1. Jake studied the battle display. The Harvester ships moved with perfect coordination, their adaptive shields making them nearly invulnerable to Council weapons. It was exactly what human strategists had predicted would happen. "Open a channel to General Vex," Jake ordered. The reptilian general appeared on the communication screen, his command bridge sparking from recent damage. "Admiral Morrison." "How is this possible?" "Hello, Vex. We received your request for assistance. But the human fleet was destroyed months ago. Everyone said you abandoned the galaxy." Jake smiled grimly. "We let everyone believe that. It made our preparations easier." "Preparations for what?" "For this?" Jake gestured to the tactical display. "We have been getting ready to fight the Harvester for 3 years." General Vex looked confused. 3 years? "But you only detected them 18 months ago." "We detected their awakening 18 months ago. We discovered evidence of their existence 20 years ago." Jake's expression grew serious. "Archaeological sites throughout the galaxy contained warnings about the Harvester. Ancient civilizations tried to leave instructions for dealing with this threat. Why did you never tell us?" "We tried. Ambassador Morrison, my predecessor, presented the evidence to the Council 17 times. Each presentation was dismissed as human fear-mongering." General Vex was quiet for a moment. "The Ambassador Morrison, who presented those reports. That was you, was it not?" "It was. I spent 7 years trying to convince the Council to prepare for this threat. When diplomatic methods failed, I took command of military preparations instead." The display showed Harvester ships closing in on the remaining Council fleet. General Vex's forces were minutes away from complete destruction. "All Council ships follow our lead," Jake commanded. Human fleet, attack pattern Omega, Liberty, led 300 human ships into battle. But these were not the vessels the Council remembered. The new human fleet moved with fluid grace, their ships working together like parts of a single organism. Captain Steve Parker commanded the heavy Cruiser Defender, one of the new human warships. His bridge crew watched in amazement as their weapons tore through Harvester shields that had been impervious to Council attacks. "How are we penetrating their defenses?" his weapons officer asked. "Because we designed our weapons specifically to counter their technology," Captain Parker replied. Every piece of equipment on this ship was built to fight the Harvester. The human weapons used principles that the Harvester ships could not adapt to fast enough. Instead of energy beams that could be absorbed, they fired quantum disruption, fields that destabilized matter at the atomic level. Instead of kinetic projectiles that could be deflected, they used gravity wells that crushed targets from within. "Sir, the Harvester ships are trying to adapt to our weapons," the tactical officer reported. "Let them try," Captain Parker said confidently. "We have 50 different weapon systems. Every time they adapt to one, we switch to another." The battle turned dramatically in humanity's favor. Harvester ships that had seemed invincible began exploding under human fire. The ancient enemy found itself facing weapons and tactics it had never encountered before. Dr. Lisa Grant watched the battle. From the bridge of a human medical ship, she had volunteered to help treat wounded from both human and Council forces. "It is incredible," she said to Commander Beth Williams, who was coordinating rescue operations. "The humans are actually winning. We should be," Beth replied. "We have been studying Harvester technology for decades. We know their strengths and weaknesses better than they know ours." "But how did you get access to their technology?" Beth pointed to the star display. "Ancient battlefields. Sites where previous civilizations fought the Harvester millions of years ago. We found wreckage and studied it." Dr. Grant was amazed. "You have been planning this for that long?" Humanity learned long ago that preparation is better than panic. "When we found evidence of the Harvester threat, we began preparing immediately." On the Liberty's bridge, Admiral Jake Morrison was coordinating the largest space battle in galactic history. Human ships darted between Harvester vessels, using superior speed and maneuverability to avoid return fire. "Admiral, the Harvester command ship is retreating," his tactical officer reported. Jake studied the display. The massive Harvester vessel at the center of the enemy fleet was pulling back from the battle. "It is trying to analyze our tactics," he realized. "Do not let it escape. All ships, focus fire on the command vessel." The entire human fleet concentrated their attacks on the Harvester command ship. The ancient vessel's shields held for several minutes, but eventually collapsed under the sustained assault. When the command ship exploded, something unexpected happened. The remaining Harvester vessels stopped moving. They floated in space like dead metal, their coordination completely lost. "What happened?" General Vex asked over the communication channel. "The Harvester is not just a fleet," Jake explained. "It is a single artificial intelligence controlling thousands of ships. Destroy the central command node, and the entire network shuts down." "How did you know that?" "Because we studied the enemy instead of underestimating it." In the aftermath of the battle, the surviving Council representatives gathered aboard the Liberty. Speaker Veltar looked around the human command ship with wonder and shame. "Your technology is far more advanced than ours," she admitted. "It is specialized," Jake corrected. "We focused all our resources on solving one specific problem. The Council tried to be good at everything. We became excellent at one thing." "Did you come back to help us?" asked Colonel Vex. "We treated you badly? We ignored your warnings? We dismissed your concerns?" Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question. Because abandoning people in need is not who we are. We could have hidden in our protected space and waited for the Harvester to destroy the rest of the galaxy. Oh, but that would have made us as cold as the enemy we fought. Speaker Veltar stepped forward. "What happens now? The Council is in ruins. Most of our fleets are destroyed. Our government barely functions. Now, we rebuild," Jake replied. "But things will be different this time." "How different?" Jake activated a holographic display showing a new organizational structure. The council will be reformed with humanity in a leadership role. Not because we want power, but because we have proven we can handle responsibility. What about the other species, General Dex asked. Everyone will have a voice, Jake assured him. But decisions about galactic security will be made by those who understand the threats we face. Speaker Veltar looked at the proposed structure. For the first time in centuries, the Zenturi would not be the dominant species in galactic government. Is a difficult change for us to accept, she said honestly. Change is always difficult, Jake agreed. But the alternative is extinction. Dr. Lisa Grant stepped forward. What about the humans who stayed behind during the evacuation? People like me? You will always be welcome, Jake said warmly. Humanity does not abandon its own, even when they choose different paths. 6 months later, the new Galactic Council held its first official session. The chamber had been rebuilt and expanded. With new seating arrangements that reflected the changed balance of power, Ambassador Jake Morrison sat in the central chair that had once belonged to Speaker Veltar. The former Zenturi leader now occupied an advisory position, her species still important, but no longer dominant. The first order of business, Jake announced, is the establishment of a galaxy-wide early warning system. We will never again be caught unprepared for ancient threats. Second, he continued, is the creation of joint research programs to study archaeological sites throughout the galaxy. We need to learn what other dangers our predecessors faced. Third is the development of standardized defensive technologies that all member species can use and maintain. Speaker Veltar listened to the proposals with mixed emotions. The plans were sensible and necessary, but they represented a complete change in how the galaxy would be governed. Do you have any concerns with these proposals? Jake asked her directly. Veltar considered her words carefully. I am concerned that humanity will become as proud and inflexible as we were. Jake nodded thoughtfully. That is a valid concern. Power has a way of changing people. How will you prevent it? By remembering that we earned this position through service, not conquest. By listening to warnings from unexpected sources. Staying humble enough to admit when we are wrong. He looked around the chamber at the representatives from dozens of species. We learned too late that wisdom often comes from those we least expect to possess it. Humanity left without a word, because we had stopped listening to their words. The session continued with discussions of reconstruction plans and defense preparations.